Seeking the wise.
With Aaron and Alexander discussing the just philosophy.
Covering self-development, emotional processing, conscious relationships, and 5 levels of overall wellness.
Welcome to the Wise Podcast. I am Aaron Keith. Along with me for the ride in the virtual studio is the one and only Alexander.
Hello, everyone. So good to be with you and good to get in this conversation. What we're going to get into today.
Yeah, let's start out with what have you been listening to lately, Alexander? What's on your
The
vintage
vinyl pick of the week is going to be Ale Fake Toure and Ry Cooder. The understanding of this album is they recorded it in an apartment and with just one microphone in between both of them. It's amazing. It's called Talking Timbuktu. And so this is African music, and Ali is one of the most well-respected African musicians there's ever been. And so I've got many of his albums, but this is one that called to me to share today. So anyone that hasn't listened, please go put your ears on this for a whole different vibe and get back to us. I'm looking forward to seeing what Aaron has for us today, but this is our ongoing vinyl share, and hopefully we'll introduce you to maybe some music that you haven't listened to before.
I don't know if I've heard that one, so I will definitely check that out. What year was that recorded in?
That I'm not sure of. I would certainly be guessing, so I'm not even going to answer on that, but I'm pretty sure it was in the 60s or early 70s.
Okay, so recorded on tape.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, cool. And how's the sound? Like, were they able to bring it out?
The sound quality was great. I mean, okay. I didn't know that they used that one microphone in an apartment until after I'd listened to it many times. So it was one of those that the production is that good that I didn't notice it until reading an article on it much later. And so that was just a little cool, anytime it's something can be recorded that raw and spontaneous, it just has a different energy about it.
And is it like considered a live album or?
Well, it not technically because there was no audience.
Okay.
It was, just live takes in one take. They didn't do any tracking on top of it. So that's another special facet of it.
Okay, cool. I will listen to that and maybe I'll report back next week. Okay, so I have Richard Ashcroft and his Acoustic Hymns Volume 1. He is the singer of The Verve. And yeah, so this is kind of like his acoustic album, and he sings some of the Verve's hits on it, like Bittersweet Symphony, The Drugs Don't Work, Lucky Man, all that stuff. And it comes in a cool turquoise color if you get the special edition, which, I do.
Yeah, I'll definitely have to check that out. It's been a while since I listened to The Verve, but I like his tone. That's pretty.
Something fancy like that.
Yeah.
But I also picked up the Verve's Greatest Hits that just came out earlier this year on some also colored vinyl. So.
Well, I love how we share, completely different genres. And so hopefully between both of us, maybe you'll like both of these choices, each recording. And, or maybe you'll like one better than the other.
Yeah, of course, like you have, like you're the one who got me into the vinyl, but you've also pushed my musical tastes because of the vinyl and because of the vintage setups more into the like pre-90s. Like I really try to push myself to listen to stuff from before when everything was recorded on tape, because it does have a totally different feel. It's more authentic. It's more real and natural, and I really juice on that. Obviously I was not, my tastes are more later because of my generation, but I really try to get into that stuff and listen to that and try to sense the differences that I feel when listening to music that was recorded on tape versus right to digital.
Yes, and we encourage our listeners to consider doing that listening challenge as well, and see if you can hear the difference between analog recorded music and digitally recorded music. There's a warmth is the way that I describe it to the analog, and the digital can sound brittle. But most people are in our culture is inundated with streaming music, so you may even feel like that warmth is dull sounding because you're so used to the brightness that digital brings. So see, this is just a personal experience. There is no right or wrong. We encourage you to like what you like, but also take the time to expand and now and then dip your toes into what you maybe don't know about or even what you don't feel like you like, because we can correct those things that we may have made a judgment at some time of our lives. But it's good to reintroduce ourselves. And this is part of the philosophy, reintroducing ourselves to foods that we feel we don't like or experiences we feel we don't like, but being willing to experience them in a different way, in a more conscious way, of being more present. And the experience can be very, very different. And I have some music that is like nostalgic for me, and I want to buy it on vinyl, and I buy it on vinyl, and I might spend $50 for it. And then I play it, and it's not anything like I remembered it being. So see, it's good to sometimes visit things that you feel like you like, and you might realize that you don't like it as much as you thought you did at one time, and then visit things that you don't feel like you like because you may have a different experience, especially if you're looking to be open to that different experience.
Yeah, I think this is just a good case study in like growing and checking our preferences, but because I feel like as we grow and our value system changes and what like our intention changes, and when we become aware of our energy, we want to do better, we want to live better, we want to have and live more in wellness. And so when our priorities change in that, that can open up the door for different preferences. So for me, with this music, it's like my intention is to live a more natural life, more into wellness. So with me shifting that in my priorities, it opens the door for me because I understand that this music is more natural. So it's like I'm gravitating more towards that because it's more in alignment with my preferences versus, the music of the 2000s, the 2010s, the CDs, everything's so hot. That no longer appeals to me because my priorities have shifted, and that no longer is in resonance with, where I'm going. And I think that's the same in many different areas in our lives. When people do start growing on this path, they're going to find that the things that they used to be into, they were into those because that's where their energy was at the time. That's where they resonated at the time. But when they shift that, these things, you start questioning, why was I ever in alignment with that?
Yes, and I think it's so good for you to share that, because I've seen that change in you over these 8 or so years that we've been together. And, in that the first step of that is just to be open to a different experience and not being so set in our ways. And, I want to remind everyone that change is the only definite that we can count on in this life. And so being willing to grow and change, some people look at they've accomplished something by still being the same person as they were 30 years ago. I hear people say, I'm keeping it real. I'm still who I am and have been. And see, that's just a whole different outlook on life, and to where the philosophy supports to always be changing and always be evolving. That doesn't mean that we have to dislike the past us. It's just to honor it in its time, and then allow it yourself to grow and to morph and to continue to to change and evolve. But the first step is that interest to do that, an interest to being willing to listen to music that you're not used to listening to have a different experience. And that's what this, again, the work, the inner work, we can go through our same everyday routine, but when you do it consciously and you're truly present in everything that you do, you have completely different experiences. So we do so much stuff in this culture through almost automaton, and and we're not really present with what we're doing. And that's what listening to music that you're not used to listening to can really help you expand that, especially with headphones and just visiting the different instruments, like I've said before, and having just a different experience rather than just going, do I like this or do I not like this? And you make that decision so quickly. So look for something that you like in it. And that's what's led me into genres of music that I used to never care for. And now, as soon as I feel like I don't care for a certain genre of music, that's the direction I go in. So I had a great discussion with one of my nephews in the past couple of weeks, and he was asking me what I had gotten into lately. And I said, over the last couple of years, it's been conscious rap, seeking out rap music that gives a positive and uplifting message. And I found a lot that I didn't even know existed. And then he said that he was into bluegrass. And right away, I knew what my new direction was going to be to research, because I told him, I said, man, bluegrass and like Celtic music are two musics that I don't turn it off if it comes on around me, but I never just comes to me that I want to go listen to that. So that's what I said to him. I said, so you've helped me to find my new genre that I'm gonna really get into. And although there is some bluegrass like Bella Fleck and the Flecktones, Victor Wooten's the bass player, and he's one of my favorite bass players of all time. So then there's so there's a lot of great old bluegrass type music, and that's what I look forward to, is getting into the old standards and some of the old stuff.
So would you categorize like Viking music as Celtic music? Because they're kind of close.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say that Norwegian would that
Yeah.
be acceptable? I'm not
Because
sure.
I can send a bunch your way.
Yeah, yeah, and I know, and I would, and I'm ready for that, And I was actually talking to another friend that was talking about Viking type music, and of course I thought of you and mentioned you, and so yeah, any of that type of vibe, and I love like listening to something, um, you know, made like from our culture, and then similar musics that are folky in other cultures as well. So that'll be my next journey. So yeah, I look forward to you turning me on to some of that Viking music.
Cool. Yeah, and like part of this is just keeping that like childlike curiosity with
Yes.
this stuff. Because once we get in our set in our ways, we are not living in that child energy, because it's like, no, this is who I am. We're not like going through the world,
Yeah.
just lost in the wonder of it all.
Yeah, and that's what I want to reiterate, is just with anything you're experiencing, just strive to find something in it that you do like. That's what starts it for me, is that if I can just find one instrument, one segment of the song that I really like, then I can learn to like other parts of it in time. And so that is a great practice that will help you in communicating with people. See, when you can learn to do it with music, it's a safe space. There's no confrontation or chance of confrontation. But really, what that's helping you to train for is to learn to do it in conversations with people, and to where they may say something that you don't necessarily like or approve of. But see, if you're practiced with what we're talking about here, you can actually shift and not react and not go into emotional reaction, and maybe find something that you're able to relate to in the whole conversation, rather than just being put off by the way the conversation was initiated.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, I had a dream, Alexander.
Dun, dun, dun.
I had a dream. Um, so this morning I had a dream that I was with my little sister, and we were going to her friend's house and accidentally went to the wrong house, and this guy was there, and we realized we were at the wrong house, so we like started walking to the real house, and he started following us, and so we went to her friend's house, and there was like this open area that you could get through, so we dove in. I think it was like through the basement, and I put like a clothes basket on the hole so he couldn't like get in. But so we went in and we ran throughout the house, and he was like, I could hear him like following us, and like her friends weren't home. So we get to a part of the house where it's like a dead end because we're in a bathroom that's like a L shape, and she gets in the shower to hide, but the shower door is clear, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" Obviously, he's going to see you. And then there's this closet that has doors that you can't see through. So I'm like, "Let's get in here." And so I just go in there, and I'm like, "Will you get in?" Because and there's like clothes, and so finally she comes in, and we shut the door, and she's like talking, and I could hear him coming throughout the house, and I'm like, "Shut up, stop talking," and she just keeps like like she's upset with me because I wouldn't do her idea by being where I could be seen, and she just would not stop talking. And then I could hear like some Spanish coming in because I think her friends were Spanish, and I don't even know these friends. Like these are just made up friends in the dream. I don't know. But I could hear people like coming in close, and somebody may have even walked in the bathroom, and she's like still talking, and it really really annoyed me in the dream because it brought back when I finally woke up because my alarm went off as we were right there, and so I was so deep, and I was like so kind of frustrated that the alarm went off because I didn't get to finish the dream, but it was
Mm-hmm.
also so intense that I'm glad it did. And it just brought up a lot of feelings about like situations in my life where somebody's not taking it as seriously as I am because I have experience or I can just understand the situation more broadly, and the other person just does not understand the situation more broadly. So then like you feel like all the responsibility is on you, but you can't get the other person to like be aware of the situation. So that was really interesting, but it also brought in a little bit of a recent situation that I had a couple weeks ago where I went camping, and there were these I mean, I don't know if this is like a term I shouldn't use, but there were drug people in a camp next to us, and that was a little concerning because I feel like that brings in an element where I haven't been around people like that. So I don't know what to expect. I don't know how unpredictable that they are. Like, I mean, and again, like maybe that's a projection and a judgment, but I just don't know. But I know that they had like meth pipes and were building some things. It was just the unpredictability of that. And so I felt like I had to be on a lot. And so I didn't sleep for most of the night the first night I was there because I just didn't know. Like, it was so unpredictable. And so like I felt like I had to be on and had to be prepared for that. So those two situations kind of went hand in hand where it's
Yeah.
like you have to be on, but maybe other people aren't in that energy with you. And that can be really frustrating, especially if you feel like they are putting you at stake in that situation because they're not understanding it fully.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we can lump all of this, connect it to rather control and control issues, and
Nailed it.
which is which is normally, the way we work on that is through the practice of trust and faith. Now, this is a delicate line between, preventative type people, which is, the protectors in us. That's the masculine side of that energy, and the trust and faith side is the more feminine energy. Both are necessary, and this is where it's so important for especially generators and manifesting generators in the human design that follow their gut, learn to respond. Is that, see, we can overthink things and we can over prepare, and when our environment necessarily isn't giving us a message of warning, but maybe our mind is, that we're, like you said, you're just not familiar with being around that type of energy and those type of people. So when the less we know, the less informed we are. Normally, the more that we go into the defensive side and the protection side. So I think there's not that there's a right or wrong in any of this, but you can see that nothing did happen, and so it wasn't that that was wasted energy, but the fact that you didn't get much sleep shows that you were in that protective role of yourself and the other people that were in your camp. And there's nothing wrong with that, except it does give us opportunities to check in of, hey, was I listening to my gut or was I listening to my head? And afterwards is a great time to sit in contemplation and really sit with that experience and say, no, this was all fear based. And see, fear and all emotions are created in the mind, to where when we get a sense that something's off, see, we don't necessarily go into fear because we don't even know what's off. We just might get the hit of, hey, we might need to pack up and go to a different site. And I really didn't want to do that, but that's what my gut's telling me. See, that doesn't have to have fear involved with it. That's why intuition normally isn't connected to emotions. But if the emotions come in, such as fear, anger, or depression, or any of that, then the mind is very involved. So, how would you take just what we're discussing here now, and with the dream and everything? Like, what can we shake up and a new formula come out? What would you resonate with?
Well, I will say that it was fear based, and I have a very vivid imagination. Like when I think about the end of the world or how it looks like when our society collapses, my mind goes to the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if that's, I mean, to me, it's a good thing because, well, I mean, there's probably positives and negatives, but the positive is that my mind can go to the worst case scenario so that I can prepare for the worst case scenario.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm prepared for that. But also it does come up in certain situations like this where it will run and when there's no threat or little threat, it will create a threat and then create the fear.
And the involvement of other people is a big part of this as well, and if they're not, like, if you show a concern and they don't show the same concern,
Yeah.
see, that's what, like, your dream was about, is that
Yeah.
that confrontation. And of course, you being a 3-5 profile in the human design, that potential of confrontation is always there, but it may not turn to an external confrontation, but an internal. Just how am I accepting that this person isn't as on point as I wish that they were on this particular situation? Of course, I've had experiences very similar in the past, and I even had a dream very similar. This was when Sherry. This was after Sherry had passed, and I was in another relationship, and it changed the way that I approached all my relationships from that point on, when I realized the level of control issues that I had at that period in time. And that dream was very significant. It was very similar to yours. I couldn't get people that I love to listen to me, and they were all going towards this party that it was not what it was seeming to be. And their lives were at stake, and I was begging them to come with me, and I decided to leave them, and I didn't go, and I had to just watch them walk into what I knew wasn't a good situation. And when I woke up from that dream, it was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I went into meditation and contemplation, and went through a lot of soul searching through that, and got very good results. So I really appreciate you bringing this up, because I think a lot of people that will listen to this, a lot of people have either control issues or possibly issues with maybe being too trust and too much faith. And so there's a balance, and that's that third chakra just below the rib cage, the balance of willpower and trust. So I'm so glad you brought this story up.
Yeah, and I mean, that control issues are the thing that I'm working on right now. Putting myself in situations where maybe I can't have as much control. So it is interesting, and I don't know why that dream came last night. I don't really have anything, not really pressing on my mind, but they do seem connected, and it does seem like
Yeah. I
part
think
of
it's
that
just
progression.
I think it's just an invitation to sit in stillness and contemplate, just around in general,
Yeah.
the control issues. But I have seen you doing work on it intently, and I've been blown away over the last few months. Some of the stuff that you have um, experimented with, and the experiences that you've had. So good job, and work on that. Because just because the dream comes doesn't mean that the issue is increasing.
Yeah.
It can be just a suggestion to go deeper into it and uncover more. Yeah.
Now with divine order there, and we go back to the dream, if that dream was real, let's just say that dream was really happening, and my sister wouldn't shut up. I mean, obviously, it was divine order whether we'd be found or not, right? I don't know if that even makes sense, but
Yeah, I mean that's the point, is that like when you really understand the first pillar here, that everything's in divine order, whether I understand it or not, is that, that helps take care of that. There's no need for extended emotional reaction. Like if you have something that elicits fear, then we want to go towards safety. But if you can remember that everything's in divine order, and if you're supposed to get away or you're supposed to be saved, then that will happen. And see, that's to keep your energy in a certain direction, a certain vibration, so that it can match with people that are looking for you in that type of situation. To where if you go into major emotional reaction, it just creates chaos. And the more people that are involved, the harder it is to get anything accomplished. So see, the thing is that like if you follow that there's anything to past lives or reincarnation, then see, the thing is can be seen like a video game, is that if like, yeah, you get caught and you die, then you get an opportunity to learn other parts of that lesson. Again, if if you make it, then you'll have something to celebrate. But the main thing here is understanding that divine order is to help you manage your emotional reactions, so that you keep your vibration at a high level, to help all of these best case scenarios. I hope that answered kind of your question of the
yeah,
connection to divine
and
order.
even like if I didn't have control issues, then possibly my sister wouldn't be having that energy of needing
Well said.
to get mad at me because I didn't take her idea. Because I mean, maybe part of my control issues was I had to be the one to choose the area, and that's why she was mad at me. But also when we're in there, I'm trying to control her to shut up, and and then she's having that reaction because there's resistance there.
Yeah, and see, I think this is a great conversation piece for different levels of relationship. What I really enjoy is clarifying, especially with my core people, of like where I'm going to be the authority in the decision making and where I'm willing to defer. And see, this is like in a situation of safety. I like for my mate to understand, if I say we need to leave right now, then I want it to be clear that I will never be playing with that. Then I need you to follow me and ask as few questions as possible. See, you can have that conversation to come up with that agreement. And then she might say, well, if I will ask you to take out the trash, I would like you to take out the trash. And then see, I can trust in her that taking out the trash isn't too much of an inconvenience. Maybe she has a more sensitive nose than me, and she recognizes the trash needs taken out. So see, that's a perfect place that I'm willing to defer and be directed. And if I can help out with that, then I'm happy to help balance out that other side, that in an emergency, if I said we need to go and we need to go now, that's our code word for please don't resist, talk back, give suggestions. We can discuss it when we get to an area that I feel is safe. So learning where to be the authority and the leader, and then in intimate relationships, knowing where you're willing to support your partner to be the authority and the leader, is a wonderful conversation to have, to move towards intimacy. And this isn't about who's the boss all the time, because again, you're talking about where both parties take the leader role, and then you're able to discuss, how you can best support that leader in that situation. Like I'm making the suggestion, I need you to just come with me. Please don't ask questions or give your opinions in that time. We can get to that later. So see, that's how I'm directing that I can be best supported in that leadership role.
Yeah, and then where does like the moon connection in the destiny cards between two people, how does that play a role in deferring? Would someone who is the sun, which would be the non-moon, not every relationship has a sun moon connection
Right.
necessarily, but when there is a sun moon connection, would the sun have a harder time deferring in that way? But I guess if you're conscious, then you wouldn't, right?
Right, right. Because you're aware of your resistance. And see, when somebody's used to being leader all the time, then you can see where the resistance is and you can work with that resistance. And that's another great self development practice. Like my son and I, when he lived with me here a year or so ago for 7 months, we did a project of the studio here. We completely redid the whole inside and outside of the studio, and he was the leader. He had never had me play the supportive role in his life. And I said, "You're going to make the decisions. I'm going to support you here." And I was providing all the materials. And so it took us a little bit longer. But see, we were doing that exercise, and see, I could catch myself wanting to jump in, wanting to be the leader. And that was my practice, is to, hey, let's trust this and the flow of this. It doesn't have to be done by any specific time. So see, that part in me that wants to get it done quicker, faster, I just told it to, hey, chill out. We're here with somebody we love, and it's a beautiful day. And so let's enjoy these days and this time together. And see, that was a good practice for me, from just wanting to get the job done, because see, that was my daddy's teaching into me that I've had to work on very, very strongly, that has helped my relationships. So all of this about when we're talking about these control issues or whatever the issues are, savior complexes, sometimes they can be to different degrees depending on these influences that you're talking about, the sun and moon. But yes, it can be more challenging for the sun. It can be easier for the moon to play that supportive role. But see, at the same time, it can be more challenging when Mars or Saturn is around, because Mars is the competition. So that brings in more resistance to be a follower or supporter. And then the Saturn influence is the teacher's role. So again, if somebody is in that time frame or that period and they're playing the Saturn role, it could be really hard for them to play the supportive role. And that's why understanding this information and, getting your yearly report and your relationship reports to understand when you're playing what role. It doesn't determine the role you play. It helps you to understand why you're either having a strength in playing that role at that time, or maybe you're having a weakness. So it's giving you information of how to work better with yourself to ideally help all your relationships.
Yes. I feel like I had more thoughts on that, but let's move on to. I feel like we squeezed enough juice out of that dream. Something that we've talked about a lot in the past, but has come up back in my life just as like a funny joke or whatever. But I laugh when I hear people exchange pleasantries, or even when they do it with me. When the whole, like, you have to say, "Hey, how are you?" and then they have to say it before you can like talk to each other. Like, if you're in a professional setting, like if you go to like Lowe's and you're at the paint department, I don't know, and they're like, "Hey, how are you?" Blah blah. "Oh, how are you?" Like, and sometimes you don't even answer each other. You just say that,
Sure.
and then you can start the conversation. But recently, when people say, "Hey, have a good one," it just, like, when I analyze that, it's like, "Have a good one." It's just, I don't know. I just laugh because they're just saying "have a good one." Like, what does that one mean? Like, are they saying "have a good night"? I mean, obviously, I know it's just like a nice thing to say, but
Pleasantries,
we're all running through life just saying these things unconsciously, and it's just something we do in our culture. So there's no like meaning or authenticity behind it, and we see it as like, a nice thing, and some people actually expect it and they get upset when somebody doesn't ask how they're doing, even though they don't even like take time to even answer it fully. But then when somebody asks it, they're not even looking for you to answer it fully. It's just something we do.
Yeah.
It's like manners, like we brought up before
Yeah.
a lot in the past. So let's, like, I don't know, dissect that, and maybe like, how do we bring in,
Yeah. I mean,
again, I know we talked about it a lot, but like, how do we bring more authenticity into this?
yeah, this is a great practice for your types of the 3 5s. especially with that
Yeah.
5 wanting to avoid confrontation. But the practice with this is to break those patterns by A, how you respond, and B, what you ask. So what I did in a practice many, many years ago for years is every time somebody would engage me with those types of pleasantries, I would ask or reply something conscious back that would make them have to think. So instead of asking people how they were doing, I would say, "What are you juicing on in life?" Or I would say, "What is your obstacle you're working on right now?" Um,
I feel like if because like when I walk into the post office, they're like, "Hey, how are you?" And, and usually I'm like, I say excellent. I don't know because that's a little bit different than what
yep, yep, that's a
than
good
good.
start. Right.
And then I'm like, "Hey, but how are you?" And they're like, "Excellent as well," or whatever. But like if I walked in there and I'm like, "Hey, how are you?" Excellent. What obstacle are you working on? That would be hilarious, actually.
Well, that's the point. Is most of the time you get them to pause, and when they pause, they come into the present moment, and
Yeah,
normally
yeah,
they'll
yeah.
laugh. Many times I answer when somebody asks me how I'm doing. I say, "Oh, I'm doing pretty groovy today." It's to use a
Yeah.
different terminology. Excellent is, but see, when I get somebody to say, "Well, actually, I'm doing pretty groovy too," and then they'll say, "I haven't heard that in many, many years." So those types of non-typical responses can actually alter somebody else's
Yeah.
consciousness and their
Yeah.
day even. So, and like I said, it's a good practice for fives in the profiles of the human design. And these are astrological systems for first time listeners, the human design system and the destiny card system. That's the two astrological systems we use in this philosophy.
I will say that like this is a great way to practice altering your reality. Like everybody talks about
Yes.
how we create our own reality and possibly we live in a simulation and like we're like the main character in our own simulation and
Mm-hmm.
everything is happening for us. And a lot of people just feel so disempowered, like they can't make an impact on the world. But like you're saying, if you just change the way you respond to one small thing, you are affecting that person's life in a positive because yeah, you're helping bring them into the conscious moment and then that is going to lift their spirits and then they may feel lighter throughout the day and change how they're going to react to someone maybe that they work with or whatever that they normally are just like blah with. Like this is just a great small example of how we can impact our reality by shifting our vibration.
Yes, and so well said. And I want to give an option that if you get resistance back, and somebody just goes, "What are you talking about?" You just go, "Oh, I'm good. I hope you're doing well." Just you. There's always ways to throw water on the fire, so to say. So see, don't just expect that everybody is going to be lighthearted and receive that, because then you might get blown out of the water. But be prepared that if they're grumpy or in a bad mood or something like that, then just shift back to their language. This is all about adapting. Again, we call it adaptation, the superhero power, and but be willing to attempt to engage with people in a different way, an authentic way. And I've even had people, like, another thing that I would do is, like, especially if I was walking by somebody that I used to work with, they would say, "How you doing, Alexander?" I would stop in my tracks and I put my hand on my chin, and they would walk by like looking at me, and I say, "Well, I'm pausing to do a check in because I really want to give you an honest answer." And see, they'll normally just stop, and they don't necessarily have the time, but they'll just laugh, and I'll say, "Oh yeah, I'm doing groovy. Thank you for asking." But see, I wanted to break. That's another way to just break and let them see you're on autopilot here. You're not really interested in how I'm doing. So these aren't to create confrontation, they're to create present moments. That's why if the confrontation pops up, then just go back into their language and say, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm doing well. How are you doing?" And I would like to suggest not to say "I'm sorry," because that is a phrase that I work to suggest people to get away from. So if you need to say something, say "I apologize" or "Pardon me." But I'm doing well and I hope you are, and then go on about whatever the business needs to be done.
Yeah, like excellent is just a little different for me, but also my 5 and the 3-5 like doesn't want to like talk to anyone when I'm out, like if I'm feeling antisocial. So like that is enough to feel like I didn't just use the mundane language, but then also not enough to get them to talk to me more. But then also once, even no matter what mood I'm in, if they start talking to me, then I want to like continue the conversation. So it is an interesting dynamic that I have when I'm out, because I do like conversing with people about fun things, especially at places that I frequent, like at the post office where I'm always there. I like to know the different personalities. The people at this post office are very introverted, so I don't get the opportunity to like understand their personalities and kind of be playful with them like I used to when I lived in Southern Virginia, and it was like a small town. And like even when I lived in Southern Virginia, I had the local bank there, and I got to know all of them, and they all loved cats. So like if I brought my cat to the vet, I would stop in on the way home and like show them my cat, and I would just go there and hang out. I like being that like hometown feel where people know you, and I don't really have that here. But then there's other times where I just don't want to talk to anyone because I don't really want to be out in
That's
public.
the beauty, is that this is all just self-development practices. You can practice it as much or as little as you want to for self-awareness. And again, this is all to help your relationship with yourself, with a higher power, and with those like closer to you. So another great talk.
And part of this is pushing yourself to be outside your comfort zone, because the comfort zone is just saying the mundane so people leave you alone.
Yes.
And this is actually authentically expressing yourself in a creative way, and then you don't know what you're going to get back, from people. And that's the practice of, like you said, adaptation. Because if you get something negative back, or if they don't give you the energy that you think, or if they don't match your energy back, then being prepared to, I guess, I don't want to say avoid confrontation, but meet them where they're at, so it doesn't create confrontation on their end, because you're not intending to do that, because you're just trying to be lighthearted. All of this is great, and like it's very similar to what I've been doing recently, which is intentionally putting myself in situations where it's uncomfortable, because that's where the growth is. Like a couple years ago, when I started doing the polar plunges on January 1st, and then started doing the cryotherapy, like I hate the cold, but I can see the benefit of putting myself in those situations, because not only does it help me physically in putting myself in extreme cold situations, which I hate, but it helps the mental preparation and the emotional level, because when you're in there and you can like shift your perspective while you're in it, then that helps prepare you for being in extreme times when you're in, maybe like a chaotic moment, and you can kind of slow down your thinking and shift your awareness and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's all good practice, putting yourself in situations that you're not normally comfortable in.
Yeah, to prepare you for when you don't have choice. This has been a great talk around self-awareness, and wasn't sure what direction we were going in today, but it was very cohesive, and love the sharing. So great job on vulnerability, and reach out to us, listeners. Let us know what you're working on, and what music you might want to share with us.
Yeah, I've enjoyed this, and I like the sharing little experiences, and then talking about how others can like practically practice the same things, even on like something so small as just like what you're saying as you're passing by someone, to begin doing this practice, as people begin that. So appreciate everyone listening. Appreciate you, Alexander.
Much love.
Thank you all very much. Thank you for listening to this free version of the Wise podcast. To hear the complete conversation and go deeper into the application of the tools and techniques of the Just philosophy, head on over to wisewisepodcast.com and become a premium member. You'll get to hear all of our complete conversations, including the complete episodes of our Inward Journey story series and our entire back catalog, and continue your self-development journey with us. We honor your dedication to self-growth, overall wellness, and continuing to ask the wise wise.
And remember, gradual changes over long periods of time equals lasting results.
Continue on your self-growth journey by visiting thejustphilosophy.com, where you are able to connect personally by booking a private consultation with Alexander in person, by phone, or Zoom. Uncover your authentic self more easily with a human design or destiny card consultation. Here you will gain information about your energetic makeup, personality, and your higher self, as well as navigating your way through your relationships. There are also multiple types of reports available for purchase that help you gain insight into your career, relationships, and opportunities for self-growth. The site also allows you to view a calendar of Alexander's live performances and class schedule, peruse other products such as shirts, CDs, and finally, the revolutionary VibroTune vibrational sound therapy tables. These contoured therapy tables allow you to bathe in a vibrational sonic bath of frequencies, bringing you into alignment on all levels. You will be feeling and hearing calming music synced through vibration and frequency. So again, you can grab all this goodness at thejustphilosophy.com, thejustphilosophy.com. The Just Philosophy, as discussed in this podcast, has been developed by Alexander over the last 25 years in his personal studies, private practice, and professional environment. The information discussed is intended for educational purposes only and is not meant as a replacement for conventional medicine. Just remember, knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. Seek the wise. We want to thank you for working on you. Keep shining your light and refining your vibe.